welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here, we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited for this episode for a couple reasons. First of all, we have our only so far repeating guest back on the podcast. I don't know, maybe for the fourth time. I don't know.
I think at least third. Yeah.
And it is my mom. I love having my mom on the podcast because we're very close and it's just fun to chat with her. And also, today's episode is our ritual for the month, our ceremony for the month. And usually that's a solo episode, but I wanted to bring my mom on because today the ceremony is around mental health for Mental Health Awareness Month. And for those who don't know, it's a topic that is very near and dear to my heart and is truly the foundation of why I do what I do. And also, for those who don't know, my mom is a therapist. So, although my modalities are a little bit more alternative in the healing world, my mom has that more traditional psychoanalytic background. So, we go deep on these kinds of topics together all the time. And it's fun to bring her on to the podcast to talk about it.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So, if you want all the step-by-steps about how to create your own ceremony, how to set up your altar, how to incorporate these rituals into your day-to-day life, I would recommend heading to Substack because there is a post that will be coming out this week about all these different tools and modalities that you can really incorporate into your life right now, and the importance of not only creating moments in your life for ceremony around mental health, but also daily rituals to really maintain that connection to yourself, not only when you're in crisis, but as your go-to in every moment. And we'll touch on some of that here as well, but I wanted to go into more of a conversation and reflection around our experiences with mental health, what we've learned, and some of the journeys we've gone through and lessons that we want to share. We'll see where the conversation goes. And these questions will also be in the Substack for you to sit with yourself and process and reflect. But the first is, what has your journey with your mental health or self-acceptance in general taught you about yourself?
So it's been a long journey. And what it's taught me in the various iterations of my own interior work is that I have an inner strength. I have a resilience, and that trusting that can really be crucial in coping with life's challenges. And it's taught me to be open and to be accepting of things as they are, and just letting go of the need to feel a sense of control over things, which of course is an illusion anyway, but it comes out of fear. And how I think over time have become more courageous, less fearful. And the key has been a mindfulness and meditation practice. In addition to my own self-inquiry for many years with my own therapist, it's been a commitment to self-discovery.
I'm actually curious. I'm sure we've talked about this at some point. Why did you decide to become a therapist? And when did you know you wanted to be a therapist? Was there a distinct moment or was it kind of a gradual process?
I think it's always, I was thinking about this in anticipation of our conversation, really, that somewhere deep down, I think it's always been a desire to be some sort of a healer. My focus for many, many years was on young children, and my doctorate is predominantly in child psychotherapy and child clinical work. And I'm still very, very devoted and passionate about that. I think that a lot had to do, I was going to say, my human design, my nature growing up. I'm the youngest of three daughters. I was very close to my mother and my father. And, but there was something about my mother that from a very, very early age, I connected with. She had a, a, a joie de vivre, a joy of life, but she also had an undercurrent of sadness. And I felt from a very early age very drawn to that and wanting, I suppose, to uplift her. You know, there was nothing I wanted more than to make her smile, to make her laugh, and to make her feel happy. And while that's a overly simplistic commentary on therapy, it's certainly not just about that. It was about taking care of somebody's overall sense of themselves. And all my work in my training had to do with enhancing people's self concept and making them feel better about themselves. That is a very complicated dynamic that we don't, that maybe another time we can go into. I always felt like I wanted to help people feel better about who they are.
And I do want to say that it's always been interesting for me knowing human design and knowing your human design so well. The difference between you having a defined G center and me having an open G center. For those who don't know, that's the center in human design that is about direction and purpose, as well as many other things, identity, etc. But yours being defined is kind of having this magnetic pull within you, taking you down a straight path. So you decide to be a therapist, and so this is your life direction, and that's just taking you there. And mine's undefined, as well as other aspects of my chart that play into this, but my magnet within me is taking me on a very winding path, and there's lots of stop signs, and there's it's like you have the map and I and a direct endpoint, and I don't have a map.
Well, you're creating the map as you go
And so
along.
I create the map as I go. Yes, exactly. And that also is, I'm a manifesting generator. You're a generator, X, Y, and Z. There's other things. But yeah, it's interesting noticing our differences. And obviously you're older than me, but just like how our life path has unfolded, as well as our similarities. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. What has my journey with my mental health or self-acceptance in general taught me about myself? Well, I mean, this is a question that I could like write books about. I believe my journey with my mental health has been one of the defining stories of my life. My mental health has been kind of a main character. It's played a very pivotal role in my path and in my life. So it's taught me so much about myself. So, I mean, a lot of it is connected to what you were sharing. One thing that comes up is that the number one thing I have to come back to is trust and faith. That's literally all I can do sometimes to maintain my sanity, because without that, I can get really lost in the not knowing, the uncertainty, the lack of control, the fear, the anxiety. That's when the darkness can kind of try to overcome me. But when I can return to the trust and the faith and the knowing that there's a reason, there's a purpose, there's a path, then I can really hold on to that and connect back into that. What has your journey with your mental health helped you appreciate about yourself?
It goes back to what I was saying originally in terms of resilience, and it relates to a lot of what you're talking about too, with trust. It's taught me that also to let go of the need to make everything right for everybody else, because, first of all, that's not possible, and it's also not necessarily what they need or desire. I think that it has taught me to be more open and accepting of, again, what is, and being okay with the messiness of it all, the unpredictability of it all, and to stay very deep in gratitude for the gifts of love that has always been surrounding me my entire life. And there's no limit to that gratitude. And it gets deeper and deeper. At the same time, the life can get more and more challenging. The gratitude gets deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I have been learning a lot about grief and loss and pain and challenging challenges, and also the fact that grief cannot exist without love and love cannot exist without grief, and just how intertwined the two are. And there's a saying, I don't remember who said it or when I read it, but you can only experience the fullness of your joy if you're willing to experience the fullness of your grief.
And exactly. And that grief and loss is a part of the journey of life. You know, we can get into more of that perhaps a little bit further down in the conversation, but that part of the fear that stayed with me when I would have challenges of anxiety, very strong anxiety, was based in a fear of loss, of all kinds of versions of loss, and being more accepting that loss is a part of the human condition and grief, and that, as you say, it is what makes the joy and the meaningfulness of life more palpable, that it really is very healing when you come to terms with that.
Yeah. And for me, I feel like something it's helped me appreciate about myself is how much like I truly care about other people and always am trying to show up with intention for others. And it's helped me appreciate the messiness of life.
Mm.
I think it is my go-to coping technique to want to, and I guess this is something I've learned as well. My go-to coping mechanism to want to put everything into neat and tidy boxes when I'm feeling overwhelmed or anxious, and that and to really have everything perfected and simplified into ways that I feel are manageable. And that just is not how life works. It's messy. We're messy. And messy is not a bad thing.
Right, right.
And so appreciating, it's easier for me to appreciate other people's messiness in certain
Mm.
ways, more so their personality messiness than their actual physical stuff messiness that I'm not, I don't always appreciate that, than my own messiness. But I'm learning to appreciate it more. So, what challenges or moments of tension has your mental health journey brought you?
Those come when I start to resist. When I start to resist what is and force what I want it to look like, whether it's in a relationship, in my work, in the world at large, when I go against what I was talking about before, which is a more open and accepting, even when that brings grief or that brings anger or confusion or fear, but it's first embracing and accepting what is. And when I try to impose upon experiential happenings within and without, when I try to impose some sort of artifact, then there's tension and there's more suffering. Part of the human condition is suffering, but I think it increases for me my suffering when I am forcing something to be what it.
And do you notice that show up in specific areas of your life or in specific times?
Yes, it shows up most clearly when this won't shock you, being my daughter, being one of my children. It shows up strongly when I sense that one of my children or my husband is suffering. And I go back to that origin story of wanting to take their suffering away. And that's when the tension is strongest. It's really still, and I've worked very hard, and I think I've made some progress, but it's a daily intentional act to be more accepting and understanding of the people I love's range of emotions, and that I can be most supportive to them by being an empathic listener, which I believe I exhibit better in my work with my patients. It's a very big part of my work. It's something that I've been trained in and also have within me that I've honed. And so when I can take that and just be more of a listener for understanding rather than a listener to solve someone else's dilemma if they are not asking for that, and then I think it's better for my sense of myself, my mental health, and ultimately for the person I love.
Yeah, well, I think this speaks so much to the fact that we are all very different and we all need different things. And what one person needs for support when it comes to their mental health will be different than the other person. And we shouldn't make assumptions. And we also shouldn't jump in to help because it will soothe ourselves. You
Right.
know, I think that that's so normal when there's someone you love in pain and you want to jump in and help them, but that's not actually what they need. That's only soothing your own anxiety and desire to control the situation. Not just, I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about in general.
Oh, but you're making an excellent point.
And I think that, again, when we're, we're the person struggling and we know that a loved one will respond in a certain way that won't be helpful, it can cause us to then shut down and not reach out for support. So having the people in your life who, well, one, reaching out for support when you need it, two, being able to communicate about what you need, and that requires being connected to yourself to know what you need, and then expressing it to others and having the people in your life who you know will be able to receive that and who will be able to give you the support you actually need. I think that's really important. And having that kind of connection to myself, to know what I need, ability to communicate it, and the people who I know will be able to receive it, having all those layers is probably now one of the most impactful parts of my mental health toolkit.
And just to pick up on that, as the person, perhaps, when you're in the position of somebody coming to you for support, why it's so important to know oneself is exactly what you're saying, because, in the psychoanalytic world, we call this transference and countertransference, but in relationships, it's about knowing if something's being stirred up within you that is not about the other person, but is an unresolved inner conflict of your own. And
Mm-hmm.
so that having that self-awareness and grounding yourself and sorting that out and discerning between that and what the other person who's coming to you is really saying and really needs is crucial. You don't have to be a therapist to be an incredibly supportive, loving parent or person in someone's life. In fact, plenty of therapists are not, and the converse is true. But what I think it does mean is that self awareness is the building block for being a support to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the ability, like what you were saying before, around listening to help, not to fix, is so important because there's that moment where we want to jump in with reactivity and emotionality, and we haven't even processed the situation. And so if we can just listen and be and take it in and have the self-awareness around, okay, this is bringing something up in me, or I'm having this emotional response, and being able to separate that from this is what this person needs. This is how I'm going to choose to support them. And again, it all comes back to the self awareness and the presence and true connection.
Absolutely. Beautifully said.
What challenges or moments of tension has it brought me? I mean, there's so many different ways I can answer this question. And for the sake of this conversation, I won't go into any details or stories, but it's brought me tension when my struggles with my mental health drag me away from my path. And what I mean by that is when I feel very anxious or overwhelmed or am having a hard mental health time, it can cause me to want to isolate, to want to overly control and be overly rigid. And that can be in direct conflict and tension with my path around connection and receptivity and full alignment. So I can feel that tension pop up in my life. And I've gotten much better at navigating it. But I think it does speak to the reminder that sometimes what our mental health or what our anxiety, what however you want to label this for yourself, what that challenge in that moment is telling you you need or telling you to do is not always the answer. And being really, again, aware of the places we are turning self soothing into self harm.
I want to say a word about vulnerability because I think that that's kind of also underlying a lot of this. For me, when I was talking about, that the need to impose an artificial construct on a situation to do away with the suffering of those I love, it's also a way of fearing my own vulnerability and making peace with that a little bit more. And that the vulnerability is like what we were saying about grief being part of joy, that vulnerability is part of that inner strength and intimacy and trust, both of ourselves and another that we want to connect with, is just so important. So I just felt that that word needed a little bit of attention in this conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, this is different for everyone, but for me specifically, if I don't let myself be vulnerable, I am directly leading myself back into mental health struggles. And really opening up and reaching out for support, talking to people, sharing what I was going through, sharing about my mess, both in therapeutic ways and in private situations and also in the ways I have publicly is what has it's saved my life and it's changed my life and it's allowed me to continue moving forward. And that was something that was not modeled to me a lot growing up and that we had to really work through.
For sure.
Okay, what gratitude does reflecting on this journey bring you?
Oh, immeasurable gratitude. As I said before, I feel like it sounds cliche, but I do have a daily and very intentional practice of gratitude in addition to noticing the moments just that are there all the time. And that has saved my life in many ways. It's just everything. And even in the darkest moment of my life and the moments of sheer terror, which I've had, and sheer grief that I felt would overcome me, when I can find my way back to gratitude, there's light and there's hope and there's resilience and there's joy. I don't even have the proper words to talk about the centrality of gratitude in keeping my mental health on solid ground.
I love that. And for me, I mean, I'm grateful for my mental health journey because it is who I am. Like it's brought me to where I am. It's I was saying in the beginning, it's been a main character in my path. And because of that, it's allowed me to have the experiences I have, to have the perspective I have. It's shaped the way I show up in the world. And it's really been a building block in who I am. And for that, I'm grateful. And even though it's been very challenging, having it be a defining part of my story, it also has been defining part of my story, and I wouldn't trade it or change it. In a lot of ways, I'm really grateful for it. I'm grateful for the people it's brought me, the lessons I've learned, all the different things. So, what do you feel like for you right now it would serve you to release and forgive or let go when it comes to your mental health journey, or just in general, what do you feel like is something that people really need to release and forgive when it comes to supporting themselves?
Well, for me, the release is about letting go of ruminations and worries because I see them as in that category of wanting to control. The worry, the ruminating over something, either that has happened, that hasn't happened, is an effort to control that which cannot be. And it keeps me in this illusion that I can force something. So as I said, it is a process, it is a journey, but it is a priority of mine to really let go of the worry, to acknowledge it, yes, but to ruminate and have it then start to distort what is and and seep into the realm of gratitude, right? And the realm of discovery and all the things that make me feel alive. It can do that. It can seep in and detract. So that's what needs to be released. And I really do encourage people who, and I'm no stranger to this, who are very hard on themselves, and you're no stranger to this, and feel a sense of remorse and regret over things and stay stuck in that kind of self forgiveness is very healing. To have grace for oneself and for others, to be open and compassionate to others. If somebody is intentionally causing you harm, they need to be released from your life. But if somebody who loves you has made an error and it's hurt you, I think that communication is critical, and then forgiveness is very healing, as much or even more so for the person doing the forgiveness than the person who is being forgiven.
Yeah, and for me, mine's rooted in control as well. Like I need to release the need to control so many things in my life. I mean, I think one is still this desire to control how people see me and
Mm-hmm.
the desire for them to understand
Mm-hmm.
me.
The
I
big one.
hate being misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
And releasing the desire for certainty, which also
Mm-hmm.
is connected to control. For me, alive is about releasing the grip on life and trusting, again, trusting, having faith that life will lead us where we need to go. We don't need to decide where we're going to go. And
Right.
often where we've decided is way less amazing and magical and aligned than where life will take us if we just let it go there. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that saying, Jesus, take the wheel. It's like really just taking your hands off the wheel. You're in the driver's seat. No one else is driving your car, but it's not your mind, your conditioning, your judgments, your stories that's driving the car. It's this like inner essence, this inner light within you that you don't even have conscious awareness of most of the time, if ever. And letting that be really empowering and reassuring
Mm-hmm.
versus the desire to let this human and our constructed beliefs try to control the show. Okay, so what are some of your intentions for moving forward when it comes to supporting your mental health or just mental health in general?
I think that, and it's very related to this whole idea of a desire to control and predict, which is, again, I think at the root of a lot of human suffering. So I continue to strive to stay very present, very mindful of what is, with an open curiosity, a trust, and that there will always be something wonderful, even in whatever it is. That looking at a situation is, there's so many perspectives, and without sounding Pollyannish or naive, there is, because we've discussed how important it is to accept the range of emotions that come and the range of experiences. But the fear can be, I think, alleviated or at least mitigated by a trust that there will be something to learn from every experience, and that looking at life mindfully, paying attention to things that, and noticing things that in our everyday that we take for granted or have just one narrow way of looking at it. And they're looking at it with, what they call the beginner's eye, with as if for the first time, is just the most exhilarating and, I think, also healing, stabilizing experience, and really does solidify and strengthen one's sense of well-being or mental health. So that's very much what I'm focused on.
And if you could come up with, we practice this a lot, one sentence that you could kind of bring with you to connect you to that intention.
You help me do the
You-
regular basis.
Yeah, to explain, my mom and I set our intentions for the next day every night together. And I really do believe that it's really helpful to have one statement for that intention that is in the present tense that we
Mm-hmm.
can bring with us and just repeat to ourselves over and over to really ground that into our mind, like root it into our belief system so that we're creating a new thought pattern for ourselves. And it present moment is important because that's showing yourself that it's happening right now.
Right. So I am confident in what provides a joy and fulfillment that nourishes my soul.
And it's interesting for me, I've been thinking about this a lot recently, and this was actually part of my intention for it today. And I shared this on Instagram, is around, and it's connected to a lot of what you were saying, observing the world through curiosity and openness and fresh eyes and detaching from any stories or conditioning or any beliefs that I'm using to kind of fill in the blanks about a situation. Not being detached or disassociated at all, but being so fully disconnected from the false narratives and
Right,
being really just connected to the present moment truth and the reality that will serve me. And therefore, and for the greatest good of all, not just, in self-service. Yeah, I think you know what I mean.
yes.
But yeah, that's my intention going forward. And that also allows for new beliefs to be established, new patterns to be established
Mm-hmm.
instead of automatically falling back into these autopilot patterns that don't serve us anymore and the ones that do lead us back to the path that might send us back into mental health struggles.
Right,
So, my sentence is I look at the world through curious eyes and an open heart. What is one intentional action you can take to help you align with your intention?
to notice. And what helps me notice is my commitment to a meditation practice of mindfulness, of breath work, of being very present. And so that helps me embrace the day with openness and awareness and wonder, curiosity and confidence.
Hmm. I love that. Yeah, and mine, I mean, mine's similar, but and this is something I talk about all the time, and it's one of my go-to things and tools, and it's because it's so important for me personally, is to slow down and to bring pockets of mindfulness and presence into my day to day, and to have these in between check-ins, in between
Mm,
each activity, in between night and day, like having these moments of ritual around transitions to allow me
mm-hmm.
to check in with how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what's coming up for me, and then to reroute if needed, reconnect if needed, and to support myself how I need to. I just think that it's so important for us to slow down and have those moments of presence throughout the day. And as you probably all know, I'm a big morning ritual person, and I am such a believer in having at least one moment in your day where you are having that sacred ritual or ceremony for yourself. But I think also placing smaller rituals throughout your day allows us to maintain that, allows us to bring magic into the mundane, and allows us to continuously bring presence and awareness back into every aspect of our day.
Absolutely. And I just want to thank you so much for inspiring me and guiding me in doing that, because there are sometimes when you begin the day and it feels overwhelming, knowing that you have that as a resource to do that really is reassuring. And I have found that, and I look forward to those. You know, I have my morning meditation, but I do implement, sometimes you call them yoga snacks, or these rituals that really do make the day more meaningful and purposeful, but also can make it more manageable. I mean, sometimes it's about not avoiding the overwhelm, right? Or dealing with the potential of overwhelm, and to know that you have that to go back to over and over again is incredibly empowering and reassuring and calming. So thank you for helping me make that a daily practice.
Okay, so to end, do you have any final message that you want to share with people? I can go first if you want.
I just hope everybody listening understands that taking care of one's mental health is so important, and that while I think our society has come a long way in opening up conversations around it, that we still have a ways to go. You've spoken about this, and it's very true. And to know that if you are struggling, that there is help, and reaching out for help and getting the kind of help that you need is is critical, and you deserve that. Everybody deserves that. And so I want to have people feel less alone, and know that there are resources.
My sentiment is very similar, and just the importance of surrounding yourself with at least one person who can support you and opening up and speaking up about what you're going through, whether that's like a complete total rock bottom moment or just a day where you're feeling sad. And it doesn't have to mean that you open up publicly about your struggles. It can just mean talking to one person, because that will look different for everyone. It's not always supportive for everyone to share. But I do believe that sharing with someone, connecting with someone is so important. And the reminder that every single person on this earth has rock bottom moments
Absolutely.
and has their messiness and imperfections, and no one knows what we're doing. No one knows what they're doing. And we all have emotions, we all struggle, and not seeing that as a negative thing. And also knowing that how you are and who you are is exactly who you need to be. And finding the right support is really important. And it's okay if you open up to someone and it doesn't go well, or it's not received, or they're not helping you how you really need. Find someone else.
That's right. That's right.
It's not your issue. It's just you haven't found the right support. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here. Thank you, Mom, for having this conversation. I feel
Thank
like this
you.
is just scratching the surface of what we can talk about and the conversations that we have, just the two of us. So
Yes.
thank you
Thank you
everyone for
very
being
much.
here.
Oh, such an honor. Thank you. I love you.
I love you. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.